is such a big part of what I do. Just general housekeeping. So like was mentioned, I will have a QA at the end of the presentation. Please put any of your questions in the chat box. And there's no such thing as a stupid question. We all have different levels of experience when it comes to social media. So I'm here to answer any and all questions that you might have. I think that all good social media starts with storytelling, and it's often the most important component of marketing that people misunderstand. So I'm here to help demystify some things about storytelling and how to tell your story online. So let's get right into it. So my objectives today are to give you advice on how to tell better stories, but then also how to share those stories so that people will listen to them. So some key takeaways will be talking about why storytelling is so important, going over some just storytelling 101, so the 5 W's and the 1 H of storytelling, and then an overview of all the digital platforms. I'm going to go through the 5 main social media platforms and how you could be using them to your advantage to tell your stories. And then I'm also going to give you just a little bit of advice on how to make your lives and your jobs easier when it comes to social media. So first, I will introduce myself. So hello, I am Avery. I am the partner and principal strategist at Kaden Ave Communications. I'm a business owner, a social media manager, and I like to say I'm obsessed with the anthropology of internet culture. I have a degree in anthropology. I actually specialized in archaeology, which has absolutely nothing to do with social media, but it did teach me a lot about what it means to know about culture, know about people. I have a second degree in psychology, so people really is at the core of my education, and it translates quite well to social media. I got my start as a storyteller by reading a lot. I was a voracious reader when I was a child. I was like the kid in the library that was reading like 3 books a day. And ever since then, I've been, I just love to read. I love to write, and it lends itself really well to my career. When it comes to social media, I've actually only been in digital marketing since 2016. So my career in social media hasn't been that long. However, I was a very heavy social media user prior to that. I like to tell a story about how when I went to McEwen University, and this is in 2005. So Facebook was just starting out. And I don't know if you remember Facebook at the very beginning, but you had to have certain email addresses belonging to universities to be able to use Facebook. So I was going to McEwen. I applied to the U of A just so that I could get a U of A email address so that I could get myself on Facebook. So that's how long I've been using social media for like as much as I can. I'm going to use like a Seinfeld quote here. I'm going to yada, yada, yada over quite a bit of my life that led me here. But we started Kaden Ave in 2018. And over the course of COVID, we actually grew quite rapidly. As I'm sure you understand, businesses over COVID realized that they needed to be online and they needed to be telling their stories online. COVID was a time of vast communication across the board. Like it was, open up, shut down, open, close, what's happening. Like we needed to be communicating on behalf of our clients constantly. So grew really fast over COVID, learned a lot of lessons over COVID. And our team, we like to say that we are extremely online because we spend a lot of time online. You do not want to see my screen time stats. They're impressive. I now have a core team of 6 full-time people. We have over 70 clients. So when I say that I'm pretty prolific with telling stories online, I mean it. So I'm going to launch into why storytelling is so important. It's becoming really, really tough to grasp an audience's attention online. There is a ton of content out there. I'm sure you know as you go on social media yourself. There's a lot of things trying to grab our attention all the time. And customers or clients or people in general they're exposed to thousands of pieces of content and ads per day. And this is causing a decrease in attention spans. So good storytelling will make them stop and pay attention to what it is that you're posting online. I think that stories can change the world through inspiration. Stories inspire action. They are what help people connect with the audience on an emotional level. And this is that kind of psychology side of marketing. The more that you are able to connect with your audience emotionally, the more that you can convince them to follow the actions that you're asking them to take. So that could be, donating money. It could be attending an event. It could be just even sharing their perspective or attending a conference, whatever it might be. You want to connect emotionally first. People really like to hear a good story. And this is, at the core of who we are as humans, dating back to when we were pre-humans. We told our histories through oral histories, through storytelling. So that social connection that we get through storytelling is really innate to who we are as humans. Stories are easy to understand and they're easy to remember. So people are more likely to remember the information that you give them if you give it to them through a good story. A well-accomplished story we call it AIDA, so attention, interest, desire, action. You want to capture someone's attention in seconds with a hook. I'll get into that down the road here, but you want to hook people's attention right away, but then you want to keep the story interesting enough that they stick around long enough that they understand what it is that you're talking about or what you're selling or what you're promoting. And then you want to make them desire to take that next step through that emotional connection that you've just formed. And then finally, you want to ask them to take action through a well-established call to action or CTA, which I'll also get into. So why I think you need storytelling, you are all doing really, really great work across the communities all across Alberta. I know that you probably have a lot of content. You just need to package it well for your audience's consumption. So you deserve to have people know what it is that you're doing, and they deserve to know what these great programs in their community are doing. So that's where storytelling comes in. And I just want to outline the difference between storytelling for entertainment and storytelling for marketing purposes. So for entertainment, this is kind of like what we all learned in school, right? A classic plot, like the books you read, they have a beginning, a middle, and an ending. There's a protagonist, there's an antagonist. There's a story arc that ends up, ending the story. And this format of storytelling is for fun. Typically, people, when they're writing for entertainment, they're not asking anything of the audience other than, here's a story for you to please like it. For marketing purposes, you're doing kind of the same thing. Like you're telling a story, but you have an ask. The ask at the end is sometimes explicit. So sometimes you're saying, visit our website or donate here, sign up here, or the ask might be quiet, where you're simply just informing them about what you're doing through brand awareness with the intent that they'll reciprocate with the positive emotions about your brand. So that's still an ask. So I'm going to go through now the 5 W's and 1 H of storytelling. And if this looks familiar, it's because I think most of us would have learned it in elementary school. We were all taught about the structure of a story. So it really is that basic. We're just taking it right back to those basic steps. And this is true no matter how robust your story is. So everything I'm about to talk about, it applies whether you're writing a blog post or writing website copy or a case study or just a social media post. You want to make sure that you're capturing all of these elements. So the first one is, what is your story about? And this is the factual information that you're trying to convey to your audience. What do you want your audience to learn? What information do they not already know that you want them to know? And it's really important here to be selective. So think of a goal or one main message or core idea of what you're trying to convey in this particular piece of content. If you make the what too complex, you can confuse your audience, or you can just overwhelm them to the point where they don't want to read it anymore because it's too much information. So don't overload anyone with information. Consider those key points ahead of time before you sit down to actually write the copy. Next up is the who. And there's actually 2 parts to the who. Who is the story about? Like, who is involved in this story? But then the second part is, who are you trying to reach with this story? So who's the subject? And then who is the intended audience? Now, when we tell stories just as who we are all as humans living in an individualistic society, we're really inclined to make the who of the story about ourselves. This is what we did, or this is how we positively affected the community. But I encourage you to turn the who around. So turn the who into the community itself. How did the actions impact the community? And try to tell the story from their perspective. The more that you tell a story from someone's personal perspective, the more they're going to pay attention, because everybody loves stories about themselves. I want to dig a little bit deeper into what personas are. Your personas are your intended audience. It's a really good idea to develop who your intended audience is before you start to actually, before you sit down and start to write your content. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that right now. So a persona is a made up person who essentially personifies your entire key audience. So you might have 10 personas, depending on what you do. You might have 2 personas. It just kind of depends on your own individual business. But you want to really dig into who these people are and put a name and a face to them as much as you can. So who are they? Where do they work? Where do they spend their free time? How are they showing up in their communities? And how can you best reach them, especially online? Where are they spending their time online? So a couple examples that I gave here. So maybe one of your personas is a 35-year-old mom. She's got 2 young kids. This is Ashley. She lives in a small town and she's looking for things to do with her kids. So she's looking for programming in her town. You would reach her on Instagram, most likely. So you can promote your events on Instagram, use hashtags for that town, maybe her friends are sharing these events. So that's where you would reach Ashley or people like Ashley. Another persona might be a local government official, and you want them to advocate for you when it comes time for more funding. You could potentially reach her on LinkedIn or Facebook. Elected officials, it's a little different than reaching, individual consumers. However, elected officials are still just people, and they definitely still spend their time on social media as well. Maybe just not as themselves, but you can still reach them through more professional channels. So how you would talk to these people will be slightly different. And it's okay to tailor your content pieces to match what the messaging would be for each audience. So when you write your story, or when you write your social media posts, for example, it's not necessarily a one message catches all. Yes, everyone might see it. However, you want to make sure that you're changing your voice, or you're changing your messaging slightly, so that you're really trying to capture the attention of these individual people. So the difference comes in the how. So how and where you share these stories is how you can change your voice or change your messaging based on who you're trying to reach. So I'll get into that in a bit here. But moving on, when did your story take place? So this one is pretty straightforward. Providing context for when things happen is important. People like to know where they are and sense of time. Did this event happen a week ago? Did it happen yesterday? Is it coming in a week? Like, people like to plan their schedule too. So it's really important that when you're writing content, especially about events or things that are happening in the community, that you're talking about when they're happening. Pretty straightforward there. And the next one is also pretty straightforward. Similar to when providing the location provides context to the person hearing the story so that they can visualize it. So this is the actual location. Yes. So it could be, last week's event took place at Center Street Library, or it could also be descriptors. So it could be that it was a nice sunny fall day. It could be that, the leaves were turning brown as this event was happening. All of these things help provide richness to the story that you're telling. And moving into the why of the story. This is arguably the most important part of the story, and I think you should actually lead with this part. So leading your story with the outcome. The why of the story is the impact of the story. And this also needs to be pre-planned before you sit down to write your content. You need to think about, why are you sharing this story? It's not just that an event happened, but what was the outcome of the event? What was the impact on the community? What are you hoping to get out of telling this story? And this is where you start to plan out what emotions are you hoping to elicit from your audience, and what call to action will you include? So what ask are you going to have for them? And bringing it back to events. So the point of having an event is not just to have an event. You have an event to bring community together, or to end isolation, or to raise funds. Those types of impact are what you should be leading with, rather than just the fact that you're having an event. So tying all of those intended outcomes into the story will help to connect emotionally. And this is not necessarily the time for brevity. This is the part of the story that you really want to flesh out for people. And my other piece of advice here is to let your audience tell the story. So if you have people in your community who are advocates for what you do, ask them for quotes, ask them for testimonials. Again, tell the story through their eyes so that you're able to connect with other people just like them. Okay, now I'm moving into some more tangible advice here. So how to tell better stories. My first piece of advice is to keep the first sentence short. So brevity is key when it comes to your first sentence. We call this the hook in marketing. And I'll get into this a little bit further down the road here. You want to use interesting vocabulary, so be as descriptive as possible. You don't want to be flowery with your language. You're not writing poetry, but you do want to be descriptive enough that people can envision themselves there or find that it's interesting. It's not just, you're not writing a law brief. It's not supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be entertaining. It's supposed to be interesting. You want to always share photos and videos with your stories. Every platform, every social media platform, including blogs, your website, allow for photos and videos to be included. And I highly recommend that you do it every single time. You want to encourage people to respond to your social media posts by asking them questions. So, you write your post and say, coming soon, this event or this program, and then ask a question at the end saying like, what would you like to see at this event, or how does this impact you? Sorry, excuse me. So asking people to give their feedback on your social media posts, it not only helps to keep it more interesting for people because now they're a part of it, but it also helps the algorithms. So the more that people are commenting on your posts, the more that the algorithms are going to share that post to other people. And don't just describe the event, describe the emotions that people feel when they attend the event. Sometimes you just have to be explicit about connecting emotionally by just straight up describing what those emotions are. And again, use personal stories if possible. So that comes back to the testimonials or the feedback that you get from people in your community. Now, you want to keep it consistent across platforms. And when I say this, I mean, you can tell the same story across your blog, across Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Tell the exact same story across all of them. Just tailor your copy so that it makes sense for that platform. And you want to repurpose. So you can even look at your old content. So if you're struggling to come up with content for the future for social media, look at your old content. What was a blog can now also be a social media post in the email. It could also, you could turn it into email marketing. You could say, in case you missed it, go back and read this blog. Some of your best content is content that you've already shared. Read everything that you write out loud and make sure that it sounds natural. And good storytelling will also always work against misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation, fake news out there on social media. So you want to make sure that when you're sharing any information, you're first of all staying positive, and second of all, highlighting facts. Now I'm going to get into how to write social media captions. So this is just a really, really simple formula for writing social media captions. Of course, you can deviate from this. You can tell long form storytelling. You can keep your captions super short. This is just how I like to write a caption if I am going to ask someone to perform something or perform an action after I wrote something on social media. So I'm going to give you a real life example here. So I do the social media for California Pizza Kitchen in Canada. This is an example where they had teamed up with another local business to match donations for the Alberta Cancer Foundation. This was very important to them. We shared this a number of times. So as I go through this, I just want to point out what the 5 W's are for this particular post. So the who of this post is the Alberta Cancer Foundation. That's who we're talking about. What, so we're soliciting donations here. Where, completely online. Online is a location. When, right now. And I actually say right now in the post. And then donate now. So I've reiterated it. And then why? So to help your friends and neighbors who are currently going through their own cancer journeys. So that's an example of how you use those 5 W's to make sure that you're capturing all that information, but it flows really naturally through the way that I've written it. And then just to highlight what the hook is. So that first sentence is the hook. It's just a very basic, simple sentence structure. The next is inform. So I've informed people that we are triple matching donations at that time. And then moving into the ask. So the ask was to donate now. Just a few other example calls to action, because your call to action can be really anything that you're asking people to do. But here's a few examples of typical calls to action that we use often in social media. So visit our website for more details. I think you should be including this in any story that you're telling that doesn't have a more specific call to action. So even if you're just saying like, you know, we had a really nice time at this event, you can say, go to our website to learn more about what it is that we do. Another one is sign up for our email list. If you have an email list, it's really great to constantly remind people that that email list exists and that they can sign up for it. Obviously, get tickets for our next event would be a really strong call to action. You would want to make sure that you link directly to where they can get tickets there. Read our latest blog for more information. So again, you just want to be leading people back to the website. The goal is always to lead people back to your website to get more traffic on your website. Donate now to help the cause, and then sign up for our exciting new program. So pretty vague, pretty general calls to action. Of course, they can be more specific depending on what you're asking people to do, but those are just some examples. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the actual social media platforms themselves. I broke them up into content versus social. I'm going to be elaborating more on the social side. That is my expertise. However, I do want to talk about the content side of things. So first of all, your content side of things are actually the platforms that you own. So like you own your website, you own your blog, and you own your email list. It's really, really important to use those assets, because we don't control Facebook or LinkedIn. One day they could shut down and we could lose all of it. But what you won't lose is your website, and you won't lose your email list. You own that information. So it's important to make sure that you're keeping your website and your blog and your email list up to date, and that you're utilizing those assets. I have YouTube in between content and social. YouTube is absolutely a social media platform. There are YouTube Shorts now, which are very similar to TikToks. However, most people still use YouTube as a video hosting platform. So I mean, I don't see YouTube going anywhere anytime soon. It is a Google product. So I'd say it is pretty safe to host your videos within YouTube. And then if you're keeping your videos on your website, it allows you to just hyperlink to your to YouTube rather than hosting those on your website, because it does take quite a bit of space and data to host videos on your website. So that's just a little tip. If you want to use YouTube to host your videos, you absolutely can. And now I know that there's a number of social media platforms. It's really, really easy to get overwhelmed. But just remember, you have a story to tell, and it can be repurposed onto all of these platforms. So you don't have to be on all platforms either. It's important to focus on the ones that you're good at, rather than trying to stretch yourself thin between all of them. And then I just want to talk quickly about workflow. So if you are, for example, let's say you're going to okay, rewind, sorry. Let's say you have a really, really great story to tell, and you want to host it across all of your platforms. Here's the way that I would do it. First, I would write a blog post about it. I would upload that blog post onto the website, then you know that it lives there. And your blog post can be long form. So your blogs can be as long as you want them to be. For SEO purposes, it's actually better to have longer blogs than it is to have short blogs. I could teach a whole other webinar about SEO, but so host it on your blog first, and then take that blog post and turn it into a Facebook post. So I would just remove any information that isn't quite necessary to tell the same story. And so basically parse it down for Facebook, share that onto Facebook, take that Facebook post, and you can put the same post on LinkedIn. Facebook and LinkedIn have very similar functionality, so you could put that on LinkedIn as well. And then I would take that post and I would parse it down even further and find the absolute best photo or best video from that event or whatever it might be, and put that on Instagram. And then from there, if it makes sense to turn it into a Twitter thread, I would put that onto Twitter. And then TikTok, if it makes sense for TikTok, that's kind of a whole separate thing. But that's the workflow for how you can take one piece of content and basically just parse it down. Okay, So now I'm going to go on to the 5 social media platforms. These are other platforms pop up all the time, and there's definitely other platforms out there. Like I just said, Google Shorts is one, or YouTube Shorts. There's another new platform that, all the kids are talking about right now called Be Real. Be Real is it's actually a really interesting platform. It's just an app where at any given time in the day, you'll get a notification to take your Be Real, and you have 2 minutes to take your photo. It takes it from the front and the back camera. And it was designed as the anti-Instagram platform, where it's designed to make it look like, be real about your life. This is not a curated feed. This is what people are actually doing in their day-to-day lives. So it's really interesting, and it's got its own host of problems when it comes to social media, but I haven't found a way to make it relevant for business yet. So it is definitely on the incline, and I think we'll continue hearing more about it as time goes on, but it's really more intended for individual users. So I haven't included it in the 5 here. Okay, so I'm going to start with Facebook. Facebook is absolutely the biggest platform out there. It is the giant. Yes, people are still on Facebook. In fact, Facebook still has 1.62 billion daily users. That is like, I think there's 6 billion people on Earth right now. So that is very significant. In Canada, the majority of users are in the 25 to 34 year age group, and 24% of users belong to that demographic. So 1/4 of people on Facebook in Canada are between 25 and 34. When we're talking about the older, like skewing older, is 35 to 44 is 18%. And then the rest of the percentages are split between people who are like 13 to 25 and then older than 44. But definitely skews older in terms of who's on the platform. It doesn't, typically young kids aren't on Facebook. Now, pros and cons about Facebook. So Facebook is absolutely unmatched when it comes to cost and effectiveness for advertising. So if you're on Facebook and you're boosting your posts or you're running ads, it is absolutely the cheapest way for you to get your information out there. It's really, really effective in terms of who you can target and the locations that you can target. So I highly recommend doing Facebook advertising if you are on social media and you're trying to spread the word about what you're doing. Now, the cons to Facebook. Facebook is very much a pay-to-play platform. What that means is that, Mark Zuckerberg made his millions in a way, and that is because they make it really difficult for your content to get seen unless you're boosting it. So if you have a business page in particular, even if you have lots of followers, we're seeing the engagement and the impressions rate decrease as time goes on. So yes, it is very effective if you boost those posts, but if you're not boosting the posts, then just know that most of your audience probably isn't seeing those posts. So just plays into your strategy, because if there's something that you really need people to see, then it's worthwhile putting even $25 to $100 behind each post just to get it out in front of the people that you want to get it out to. I'll take a sip here. So how stories can be told on Facebook. Facebook's really great for long captions. They have a 2,200 character limit. This is more than you would need, quite honestly. It's quite a long story. Facebook also allows you to post an image or video, and you can actually have videos up to 240 minutes long. So that's like a feature-length film that you can upload on Facebook and host it on Facebook. You can also include links in your caption. So of course you always want to be linking people, like I said, back to your website or to whatever action you're trying to get them to take. And the nice thing about Facebook is you don't have to resize your photos for Facebook. You can post a photo of pretty much any shape or size, and Facebook will automatically make it work for the platform. Facebook is a really, really great place to be sharing your events, sharing your good stories. Things do live in the Facebook feed for quite a while. Like, unless you're posting prolifically, unless you're posting constantly, it's pretty easy for people to go to your Facebook page and just scroll down and see what you've been up to. So I do recommend that you're on Facebook as a business, if not as an individual. I understand if you don't want to be on as an individual, but moving on to Instagram. Instagram is a Facebook product. So Instagram and Facebook are owned by Meta, now called Meta. Instagram has 500 million daily users, and Instagram users spend an average of 30 minutes per day on the platform. Most of us that are Instagram users are actually much higher than that. As a social media manager, no joke, I probably spend at least 6 hours a day on Instagram, but that's my job. I understand if you're not that high. I hope that you're not that high. And anecdotally, when I talk to my clients, this is most people's favorite platform. It's very fun to be on Instagram. The whole point of Instagram is that it is a storytelling platform. So it tells stories through photos and videos. And Instagram is trying to become more of a storytelling platform in that they're trying to emulate what TikTok is doing. So the pros of Instagram, this is where people who are 25 to 45 and even older, this is where they are. It's very visual, and you can get a really good organic reach on Instagram still. So unlike Facebook, which is pay to play, Instagram still allows your content to be seen by quite a few people if you're posting it organically, or that's unpaid. And especially if you're posting things like Instagram Reels or videos, then those are getting more reach than photos are right now. That's kind of a con actually though, because the algorithms on Instagram are always changing, and it's all like even the platform itself, what it looks like is always changing. So sometimes it is hard to keep up with Instagram. But if you're an individual user, like if you're using it as yourself personally, then it's pretty user friendly. So, and like I said, Reels content is becoming very important now, and Instagram is really stressing the fact that they want people to be using video on Instagram. So how your stories can be told here. So same as Facebook, the captions are maxed out at 2,200 characters, and I don't recommend that you use that entire amount. That's a pretty long story that you would be telling. You'd probably be better off putting it to a blog instead. I highly recommend that you use only high quality images here. So if you've ever been on Instagram, you know what I mean. People will post like blurry photos or photos that are not focused, or like the subject is way too far away. The photos that perform the best are the ones that are really high quality. And ideally, you'll be posting vertical video. So I know that that's a whole other thing, getting into creating Instagram Reels or creating TikTok style content. But unfortunately, it is the way that Instagram is trending. So it's just an ideal situation. However, photos are still very much a thing on Instagram, and they will be a thing for quite a while. Instagram promises us that they'll be a thing for quite a while. So you can still post video, or you can still post photos. Now, just a note too, the maximum video length for Instagram Reels is only 90 seconds. So you don't have much time to tell your story. You want to keep your grid, so it is like your main Instagram feed. You want to keep it photo focused. So if you have old graphics from past events, like go through and just archive those out, because people prefer to go to a grid, even for businesses, and they like to see human faces. So try to keep your photos as human focused as possible. And you want to use hashtags to increase your reach. So you can use up to 30 hashtags per post. And I highly recommend that you use all 30, especially location-based hashtags. So for example, I'm in Edmonton, so hashtag YEG, hashtag Edmonton, hashtag Explore Alberta, hashtag Alberta. All of these hashtags will help people who are in the area find your content. Now, a downside to Instagram is that you cannot share links in the caption or in your comments. So if you want to share a link with someone, you either have to DM it to them, or you can put it in the stories now. So the Instagram stories have the capability of putting a link in there now, which is really effective. And on that note, I do recommend that you utilize stories and utilize all of the functionality of stories so that you can get greater reach, because you'll be encouraging the algorithm by showing Instagram like, hey, look, I'm using all the functionality you want me to use. And that does help encourage the algorithm. Okay, moving on to Twitter. Twitter it's one of those very polarizing platforms. People either love it or hate it. I'm more on the love side of Twitter. And the reason that I love Twitter is that it is so effective for sharing information. So it's really timely content. It's happening right now. I like to give an example. So anytime I'm stuck on the highway and there's like an accident and I can see there's kilometers of cars ahead of me, I like to go on Twitter and I just search like QE2. And typically people will be tweeting about what's happening in the moment, which is really nice. So you can know what's happening like right now. And also on Twitter, and this could be relevant for some of you, is that you have an ability to reach individuals that you might not otherwise be able to reach on social media. So for example, like CEOs of major corporations or politicians. Most politicians are on Twitter as themselves. They don't have social media managers. So you can actually tweet at them or send them a message. And for the most part, at least they'll see it. Whether they engage is up to them, but you can reach them directly. Now, a con of Twitter, of course, is that it's limited in character count, and it is very easy to get lost in the noise of Twitter. The average lifespan of a tweet is about 8 minutes. So if you're going to be on Twitter, you have to be pretty committed to Twitter. And I want to address too, Alberta has a very active Twitter community, and specifically in Edmonton. So any Edmontonians out there, I've heard a rumor that the #YAG hashtag, so that's our like airport code hashtag, which we use for location on Twitter. I've heard that it's the most commonly used location-based hashtag in North America. I'm not sure if that's true, but honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it was, because there's a lot of people in Edmonton on Twitter that use that hashtag. And it's just a very, very active Twitter community. Now to get into the details of how you can tell stories here. So tweets, of course, they're intended to be short clips of information. So a single tweet has a maximum of 280 characters. However, you can do tweet threads. So tweet threads are really, really effective in sharing that longer form information. And people actually pay attention to tweet threads more than they do individual tweets. So they're quite effective. A tweet thread is just where you link multiple tweets together by replying to your previous tweet in the thread. So you would tweet your first tweet, and then you hit reply on your very own tweet, and then do your second tweet. And then on your second tweet, hit reply, do your third tweet, so on, so on. So there's no limit to the number of tweets that you can do in a thread. I do recommend that you use images in your tweets. It will help you get views. It just takes up more real estate as people are scrolling through Twitter. People tend to stop and look at photos because it's visual. So use images as much as you can. And you can use links on Twitter as well. And then just again, hashtags are super important on Twitter, especially location-based hashtags. Okay, moving on to actually my personal favorite platform, surprisingly, is LinkedIn. People love to bash LinkedIn. I think it's got a very bad reputation for being kind of the boring platform. But I think that is actually a really, really effective platform because it has a really strong network spider effect. So it is a pay-to-play platform in the same way that Facebook is, that you can boost your content. However, your organic content on LinkedIn will still perform quite well. So it's meant for more professional content. It's really, really good for attracting new talent. So I recommend that all businesses on LinkedIn showing off the good things about your organization. Like, why is it great to work with you? Why, what opportunities do you have available? What kind of benefits do you have for your employees? And showing that in a really organic way so that people come across your business on LinkedIn and they go, this looks like a really cool place to work. And then on that note, you can also post open jobs directly on LinkedIn too. Now, a con about LinkedIn is that it's not as great for timely content because the algorithm, because of that spider effect, it often will show posts that are days old. So if a post is starting to get some traction because people are starting to like it or comment on it, it'll reshare that post again days later. That's a really good thing for you if you have a post that you've just shared and you want people to see it. However, it means that if you have a post that you just posted and no one's really paying attention to it, sometimes it can get buried. So talking about how stories can be told on LinkedIn. So very similar to Facebook, the content allows for 2,200 or 2,000 characters on LinkedIn. So it does allow for that long form sharing. Photos and videos can also be used on LinkedIn. So same as Facebook. You can absolutely use links in your captions, and I highly recommend that you do. It's also really important on LinkedIn if you're talking about other organizations. So, maybe you were, I keep going back to the event example, but maybe you hosted an event and you co-hosted it with another organization. If you tag that other organization, it helps encourage the algorithm to share that content. In the same vein, the hashtags are very important for LinkedIn, again, for the algorithm so that people can find that content. And like I mentioned before, you can list your open jobs on LinkedIn directly. So LinkedIn can actually replace Indeed entirely. And I really like the jobs functionality on LinkedIn. Getting into TikTok. So TikTok, I know it's for the kids. Yes, it's definitely for the kids. However, it's getting big enough that we can't ignore it anymore. TikTok reached 1 billion users in the third quarter of last year, and they're expected to reach 1.8 billion users at the end of 2022. So that's more than Facebook. TikTok is really, really big in Asia, and it's part owned by the Chinese government. There's like political issues with TikTok. However, it is a very, very entertaining platform. Honestly, I barely watch TV anymore. I find that at the end of the night when I'm trying to like, shut down and just enjoy my evening, I'll have the TV on in the background, but I have my like AirPods in and I'm just watching TikTok. It is addicting. TikTok is entirely video focused though. So as a marketer, it does make things difficult because it means that your photos, these really beautiful photos that you're taking, are no longer relevant. You do have to do video for TikTok. So big pro for TikTok is that there's huge potential for global reach. It's quite easy to go viral on TikTok actually. And I like to use an example. I posted a TikTok of my cat Ted. He's an orange cat. He just meows a lot. We call him a little screamy boy. He screams a lot. And I put it on TikTok, and within like 24 hours, I had 3.6 million views. So it went very viral. Of course, it means nothing for me. My cat got a few views. It really does nothing for me. However, I got 10,000 followers basically overnight. So now all of those people are seeing all the new videos that I'm posting. The downside to that is that they're expecting cats. So if I post anything other than cats, they're not happy. So it's a very interesting platform in that one piece of content can go viral. And that's fun and that's exciting. A con to it is that it is really hard to contain your audience to Edmonton or to Alberta or whatever location you're in, because it is a global audience. So unlike Instagram, which is still keeps it quite localized based on hashtags, TikTok, you cannot control where your content is going to be seen or where it's going to go viral. So it's like if you're selling a product and that you can ship worldwide, no issue. However, if you're trying to get people to come to this program or come to this event in your community, TikTok might not make sense. It does skew to a younger audience. And of course, content creation is very time expensive. So it is an expensive platform to do well. And now how stories can be told here. So again, video only. The length actually depends on your individual account. Some people have 1-minute videos, some people have 3-minute videos, up to 10-minute videos, just depends on your own account. I don't know what drives that, to be honest with you. The best thing to do for storytelling on TikTok is to use trending sounds and songs to increase your reach. So if you've been on TikTok, you'll understand what I mean by there's trends that people follow. And you can use those trends to help promote what it is that you're doing in your business and your organization. TikTok has very short captions, so it's not intended to be like a lengthy story in the captions. It's intended to tell the story through the video. You can use hashtags to increase your reach. However, they're not as effective as they would be on, say, Instagram. No links in the captions. And it's really important for TikTok for storytelling that you pre-plan your videos using like storyboarding. So storyboarding is where you plan out what your scenes are going to be ahead of time, so that when you sit down to film it, or when you get the team together to film it, you know exactly what story you're trying to tell in advance. And not to scare you, because the videos, they don't have to be complicated. It really could be as simple as like me petting my cat and my cat screaming and that goes viral. It truly doesn't have to be complicated content. It could just be that you get in the practice of taking video when you're out at events, and then you splice those clips together and you put them to a trending sound, and now you're on TikTok. So don't be afraid of TikTok. If anything, I encourage you to give it a try. It is fun. At least you'll have some fun on it while you're there. Okay, so in order for you and for the work that you do, this is what I would recommend in terms of what platforms you should be on in order of how you should focus. So like I said before, you don't need to be on every single platform, and I actually don't recommend it. I recommend being on the platforms that you are best at doing. So I would start with Facebook. Facebook is still the giant. It is still the best way to tell your story if you're a community-based organization. Then LinkedIn. I do think that it's important to be on LinkedIn. You can tell those same stories and just gear it towards being, professional, or trying to attract people to your organization. Third is Instagram. Instagram is a great place to share your videos, share your photos, to show people visually your story. And then next, I would say Twitter and TikTok. If you have the time and the ability and the knowledge about those platforms to be on those platforms, give it a go. Absolutely. But if you don't have the time or the knowledge, or if you don't want to, then those are the two platforms that I say you could avoid altogether. And I want to highlight how important it is to use eye-catching content. So visual content is a very, very important part of good storytelling online. It is, in 2022, our camera phones take really good photos. So your iPhone or your Android will take as good a quality photo as you need it to. Lighting is everything when you're taking a photo. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your back to the window or to the light source. So if maybe it's the sun, you want to make sure that you're putting the sun is to your back and the subject is in front of you. You don't want to ever take a photo like into the light source, into the sun, or into the window, or whatever it might be. Move your body instead of using the zoom function. So zoom will always end up being a little bit grainy because you zoomed in on it. It's better to move your body or to take the photo from further away and then just crop the photo later. And then you want to make sure that you're really focusing on what your composition of your photo is. So what is it that's in the frame, and trying to get your subject kind of as close as possible as you can in the frame. And then my other advice is take a few shots, like take dozens of photos and then just use the best one. I look nothing like I look on Instagram, because every single Instagram photo I've ever taken of myself, I've taken 100 and then I just use the best one. So it's okay to do that for literally any situation that you're in. Take as many photos as you can and then just, pick your favorite. And then I mentioned this before, but get in the practice of taking photos and videos at all of your events. So the videos, like I said, they can be spliced together to make Instagram Reels or make TikToks. I could teach an entirely separate webinar on how to, shoot video for Instagram Reels, but at least if you are there, get the video while you have it. Even if you don't know what to do with it, maybe someone in your organization will know what to do with it. So get the video while you're there. Okay, I'm going to round out this webinar on a few tips on how to work smart, not hard. So these are my best tips for how to make your jobs easier. And my first tip is Canva. Canva is the best tool out there. It is incredible. I'm actually doing this presentation on Canva right now. This is not downloaded to my computer. This is entirely run through Canva. I have on my own screen, like my notes, you can only see the presentation screen. It's super cool. Canva also allows you to create graphics. So they have thousands of templates out there for anything that you're looking for. You just search the templates, whether it's an event or, coming soon or whatever it might be. You can find templates, you can rebrand them with your own colors, you can add your own logos. And then Canva will also allow you to resize the graphics. So you can size them to a square for Instagram, for example, or, horizontal, or if you need a specific size on your website, you can do that on Canva as well. I like to tell just a very quick story about Canva and why I love it so much. So Canva was started by a woman in Australia. She was an entrepreneur in her own sense, but she found that there were a lot of small businesses out there that weren't using Photoshop, and so they weren't creating their own custom graphics because Photoshop was way too hard to use. So she said, I'm going to create a program that allows people to drag and drop and easily create these graphics so that they can promote their businesses without breaking the bank and without having to take an entirely separate course to learn how to do it. So that accessibility of graphic design came through from like her the core values of the entire organization. So a Canva Pro account costs only $16 a month, and it's worth it, honestly, just in the stock photos and the stock videos that you get. So highly recommend Canva. Next up, and this is an actual shot of a content calendar that I use. This is the best way to organize your thoughts and your content so that you're not scrambling and trying to post on the fly all the time. So you can use a content calendar for anything. You can use it for your blog posts, for your website content. As you can see here, I've used it for Facebook posts. You can have different columns for Facebook, Instagram, so that you're writing your captions slightly different for each. And it allows you just to copy and paste over. It also allows you to organize, as you can see here, I have our photos that we're going to be posting organized right in the content calendar. And then if you have an approval process, so for example, if you're working alongside a communications team, and they're doing the posting for you, or they're approving the content before it goes out. It can be done right here in the content calendar. See that approved column. It allows you to really organize your thoughts and develop that workflow. And it does not need to be complicated. We do all of our content calendars in Google Sheets. You can use Excel. There's also content calendar like apps out there that you can use. Hootsuite has their own. Sprout Social has their own. There's a number of content calendar styles that you can use. The thing that I love the most about content calendars is it allows you to sit down and batch your content ahead of time. So as it goes with any kind of storytelling, I mean, not everyone is feeling creative all the time, right? It's not like a 24-hour process where your creativity flows all the time. If you are like that, I'm very jealous, but that's not how it works for me. But when I am feeling creative or feeling like I could sit down and tell those stories, it's really effective to have a content calendar so I can just bang it out all at once. And then I have my content ready to go for the whole next month. And that allows for that consistency so that you're posting on a regular basis. And then just going back to the note about having like a communications team, if you're working alongside a communications team, you can also prepare them. So you can have like kind of a mini media kit. So you could have all of your graphics ready to go in the right size for each platform, or you could have your posts written out, including all the links and all the CTAs, so that everything, the whole team has that full transparency into the content that's going out. Moving on here. So another tip to make your lives easier, and I've mentioned this a couple times already, is collect stories from your community. So really lean on other people to tell the story of what it is that you're doing. And that ties back to that impact. You always want to be leading with that impact, and you get to learn about what that impact is by talking to people in your community. So turn that into content. And then finally, it's okay if you're not a natural storyteller. I'm not a natural accountant. Like I try it, I'm terrible at it, so I hired it out. If you're not a natural storyteller, it's okay to find someone on your team that is, it's also really important that if you are doing marketing in an organization, to know that that's something that you can hire out. So it is, marketing, especially social media marketing in 2022 is not something that we can just kind of push off to the side of our desks anymore. It is becoming essential for our business. So work it into your budget if you need to, if you're not good at it yourself. And then just a final note here is that it's okay if you're only good at writing blogs, or you're only good at doing long form content, but you can't figure out how to parse it down. Like, it's okay to have certain people on your team that do certain things. So maybe there's someone on your team that really likes TikTok. Great, let them do TikTok. Like kind of relinquish control as much as you can so that you're able to do as much as possible. That's my final piece of advice to you. Okay, I'm going to move into questions. I have been ignoring this chat box the whole time. Just looking here. So, does a testimonial need to include the name of a person who made the statement? No, I don't think it does, not necessarily. So a testimonial you could just use initials. You could make up the initials. You could make up a name, honestly. It really only makes sense if it's highly specific, or if it needs to be something that's identified. I mean, I can't think of an example, but I think if someone was just like, hey, this was a really great program, this is what I got from it, but they didn't want to have their own name attached to it, you could just put initials. It's not necessarily to have the name. And then, is a newsletter the same as content platform? So a newsletter would be like your email. So I kind of tied those together because email is typically how you share your newsletter. I know sometimes your newsletter is also just shared in like a news section on your website. But yeah, a newsletter would also be on the content side of things. And again, because you own that information, no one can take that from you. So it doesn't just get hosted on social media. And can we get the link to this presentation to look back on? Yes, absolutely. How would you suggest going about collecting stories from our community? Okay, so there's a few ways that you could do this. One is just like be present in the community. As you are at the events, or as you're, in the programming or whatever it might be, as you're talking to people, ask them questions. Say, hey, what did you get out of this? And then if they tell you something positive, you say, that's really great. Would I be able to follow up with you on that? Would you be willing to do a testimonial, or would you be willing to tell your story? So that like human to human, that kind of like face to face, boots on the ground contact is still really important here. And then another way that you can collect stories is to solicit them on social media. So you can ask people, submit your story. We'd love to hear from you. What did this mean to you? Keep asking those questions in your social media post, and they will give you feedback. Question, is it important to respond to people who comment on your post, positive or negative feedback and comments? Great question. Yes, it is very important to respond to people who comment on your posts. So positive comments, absolutely. You want to encourage people to continue leaving positive comments, give them that positive feedback so that they continue doing it. Negative comments, it is important to respond to negative comments as well. I know it's tricky though. So if a negative comment is giving constructive feedback, it's important to respond and say, thank you so much for your feedback. We're taking this into consideration, or even just thank you for your feedback is enough. If you need to follow up with them, you could say, thank you for your feedback. We'd love to hear more from you. Could you please email us so that we can talk more? Now, the goal with negative feedback is always to try to take it offline. You don't want them to continue talking on social media or in the comment box or in the comments. You always want to say like, hey, we'd love to chat with you in person. Can you give us a call so we can talk about this further? If it's a negative comment that is trolling or abusive in any way, or they're swearing or anything like that, you're allowed to delete those comments. There's nothing saying that you have to keep comments that are abusive, and it's actually better to remove those comments so that it doesn't harm anyone else. Okay, that's all the questions here. Oh, sorry. I see one more here from Cassidy. Once we've collected stories, how would you suggest posting on Facebook or Instagram, just a general testimonial post? Yeah, I think like a testimonial post is a great place to start. Actually, Canva has templates for testimonials, so you could turn it into a graphic. If they were willing to have their photo attached to it, I think that's even more powerful storytelling, is having that human element to it. So there's a few ways. Yeah, you could just do it as like, here's this great testimonial we got, or you could turn it into longer form content where you say, here's this person, this is what this is their story, and tell it in greater detail. And do you recommend having a social media policy? If so, do you have a template? I do recommend having a social media policy across the board. Yes, I have a template and I can send it out. I'll get that together. So yeah, a social media policy, and I actually recommend having it posted like on your Facebook so that you can refer people back to it. And then that way, if people are leaving kind of abusive or harassing comments, you can even just say, this is not in line with our social media policy. This comment has been removed. But yeah, it's good to set boundaries with people. Okay. Oh, more questions. Okay, I love this. Do you have any suggestions for recruiting or getting more interest and trying to get volunteers in the organization on social media posts? So this is, yeah, so if you're trying to get more interest with volunteers or recruiting in any way, this is why it's important to lead with impact. So it's important to connect emotionally with people, tell them why they should be doing this in a way that expresses the story and like, what will they get out of it? Again, everyone's selfish. Everyone wants to know what they're going to get out of it, but they're going to feel really good because this is the impact that it has on the community. Or here's the way that they are personally going to be able to impact the community. So yeah, if you're trying to get more interest, lead with that impact. You're welcome. Does anyone on the call have any other questions that you'd like to say out loud? No one? Amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for listening to me. It's been a while since I've heard my own voice for an hour straight. So I really appreciate that you're here and you're listening for your really, really great questions. This is my contact information here on the screen. Please do reach out if you have any further questions. We do a free 30-minute consultation to start. So even if you just want to book 30 minutes to chat about next steps in your organization, I'm happy to do that as well. If you have any questions, yeah, you can email us. Oh, there's one more question in here. Where are the best places to learn more about these apps? Oh, great question. Okay, so Facebook and Instagram, they have something called Facebook Blueprint, or I think now it's called Meta Blueprint. But you can go to Meta Blueprint and learn a lot of information. It's all free. It's basically e-learning courses that Facebook has set out, and it will actually walk you through how to do just marketing in general. So Facebook or Meta Blueprint is a great place to start. Otherwise, you can just Google any question that you have about the platforms, Google it. Either the platform will have information on it or someone else on the internet will be talking about it. So yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
Great. Thank you very much, Avery. That was amazing information, lots of information. It sounds like we could have a whole bunch more webinars on each individual topic. So if people are interested in that, please let us know. And we're happy to provide or dig into some of these topics a little deeper. But this was an excellent overview. And thank you so much for your time. We will share the information and the recording. We'll send it out to everyone. So that should be coming within the next couple of days. So, any other questions before we say goodbye? Oh, Instagram Reels. Yeah, all the video. There's so much to learn about those video platforms, and they're fun to play with. And I know I've tried doing that a bit. I have to also say, Avery mentioned Canva. It is an amazing resource, and there's a free version, but yeah, like she mentioned, if you just pay that little bit of money, you get a lot more use, I guess, if you pay for that Canva. So.
Yeah. And in the meantime, anyone wanting to learn more about Instagram Reels, I mean, I recommend just starting a personal account, even if you don't share it with anyone else. You could have literally 0 followers on there and just play around with it. Like, the functionality is, the best way to learn it is to use it. So play around with it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Avery.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.